I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today we have another special guest, Vinnie Langdon. He is an actor and a filmmaker, and he's going to discuss with us today his journey in self healing from depression. Vinnie, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And I think it is a very important topic to talk about. Uh, you know, some of us, especially in the entertainment industry, we always are having our guard up. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to be vulnerable and hard to be like, hey, I'm having a hard week. And that's really hard because in today's society, it's looked, down upon, unfortunately. And when you're in a field like I am, where I am constantly being, monitored on social media, where people are like, oh, hey, you're working with these artists or you're doing this, you were just in a movie, you were in a TV show. And a lot of times people assume that we're okay, we're fine, we're great. They see that
Mhm.
selfie on social media and assume that, oh man, his life must be just, oh gosh, he must be just living the life, hanging out on the in the pool and, got all these people loving and surrounding him. And sometimes that is not the case. And it's hard to be, when you're quote unquote an actor and you grew up your whole life acting, you become a good actor where you can pretend that, hey,
Yeah,
everything is okay. But in reality, we're all human beings, and sometimes it hits us when we least expect it.
absolutely. I 100% understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah.
So, what movies do you act in?
Yeah, sure. Well, my background, I started at the age of 14. I just, my parents put me in homeschool because it all started back in seventh grade for me when I was that kid where it was like, "Oh, okay, I like having one teacher." And then you get to middle school and it's like, "Oh, you have a teacher per subject." And that just overwhelmed me. My parents
Yeah.
put me in homeschooling and then that kind of messed with me with like having a social life. I was like, oh man, I have my grandmother I can call on the phone every day. All my friends are in school, so like, where are my friends? Where are my people? And I needed to go out and find that. And for me, it was acting. Join local theater companies, and it was like, hey, now I'm starting to have a social life. Okay, this is good, but I wasn't satisfied there. I had this like hunger for the fame life, right? So
Mhm.
I grew up in a Northern California town called Vacaville, which was an hour from Sacramento, an hour from San Francisco, 6 hours north of Los Angeles by car. And when
Mhm.
someone's like, "Oh, you wanna be an actor? You gotta move to Hollywood and do that." And I was like, "Yeah, mom, dad, can, you quit your jobs and can we move to Los Angeles?" And the answer, of course, was, "No,
No.
no, you gotta focus on school and you're not gonna be a Disney Channel star. It's not gonna happen for you." So, ironically, there was an advertisement on a local public access TV station in my hometown. It said,
Mhm.
"Get your own TV show." Well, when I was in the midst of that and going, "I wanna be famous, I wanna be an actor," at 13 years old, I
Mhm.
said, "There's my calling right there." I went to a local TV station, I learned video production, how to use a camera, lighting, sound, and how to video edit,
Mhm.
and they said, "Why don't you get your own show?" Immediately I thought of the shows that I currently was watching at the time, which was SNL, Mad TV, going, "Oh, yeah, I could do comedy sketch, series,
Yeah.
and, I could make up these weird characters and do impersonations, and that could be my thing." But when you learn video production, you realize, number 1, it's gonna cost money, 2, you're gonna need more than just yourself, and I had to
Mhm.
figure out a way where I could create my own path with just myself.
Right.
And for me, that was doing something similar to what you're doing is going out and interviewing people.
Mhm.
And when people were like, "Go out and do interviews," I'm like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, I don't wanna be a talk show host, but
Yeah.
I wanna be a movie star. I wanna be on the movie sets and pull out in the limo and red carpet, Hollywood, the whole 9 yards. Like, I don't wanna be a reporter." Well,
Mhm.
turns out I ended up taking all those video production classes and interviewing. I tried interviewing my town's mayor, the city council, local state senators, realized, no, politics is not for me. Too much,
Right.
too much,
Yes.
this and that, and I don't play that. So I was like, "Okay, that's not fun. Let me try interviewing bands."
Mhm.
So my sister used to book bands at a local ice skating rink. I asked her for some contacts, and what I realized quickly was that everyone in the music scene is connected some way, somehow. It's like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, my brother's in a band. Oh, my ex is now playing in this band. You should go interview them." And about this time, now this was before YouTube. This is around 2003, 2004, and a social media platform comes out called MySpace.
Uh-huh.
Now the interesting thing about MySpace was, especially being 13 years old at the time, was don't tell mom and dad you're making a MySpace account. So it was
Right.
like a
Yeah.
big hush hush thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe you're posting bathroom mirror selfies and all that now. So I people told me, "Hey, you should take your video clips of these band interviews and throw them
Mhm.
up on MySpace." And I was kind of, a little, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, there's going to be a lot of weirdos on the internet. People are going to
Mhm.
say, hey, you stink. You're a loser. So
Right.
a lot of self conscious. But the thing about it was my show, my band interviews were already airing on my local TV station in my hometown. So I thought,
Mhm.
well, what's the difference if people already are seeing me on TV and people are seeing me on the internet? So I start uploading little snippets of my show because back then they were like, "Oh, you only have like a minute duration." It was like TikTok, you have a certain amount you're only allowed to upload. So I put my videos up on MySpace, and all of a sudden, like, within, like, a six-month period, I'm getting friend requests from record labels, other bands
Uh-huh.
going, "Hey, you should interview this one, and that one." And I'm
Right.
like, "I don't even know who the Jonas Brothers are. I don't even
Yeah.
know who Paramore is. Why are the Plain White T's asking me to debut a song on my show? I don't
Uh-huh.
know who these bands are." But I ended up interviewing a lot of these artists, and
Mhm.
then it ended up, "Hey, Vinny, come out to Ozfest, come out to the Vans Warp Tour, come out
Mhm.
to all these, music festivals." And again, being 13, 14, 15, I guess it was kind of amusing for adults and even people my age to sit there and go, wow, look at this kid interviewing these big, famous bands and not getting starstruck. And although it wasn't acting for me, it was
Mhm.
still an avenue to get my name out there and build my resume. So if
Mhm.
I did have that opportunity one day to say, I'm ready to move to LA or New York, I have a following now. So, and that was really important. So fast forward, I did my show from 2004 all the way to 2015. I
Mhm.
produced 550 half-hour episodes. My
Mhm.
show was on 7 different TV stations from California to New York. And then, when you have that lifestyle of like every day you're filming or you're editing and you're putting content out on the YouTube, and your friends call you up on the weekends, "Hey, we're hanging out," and you have to turn them down because you're like, "Sorry, I'm in a tour bus about to interview, this, big rock band that you guys like."
Mhm.
It kinda catches up to you in a fast forward motion, and that's where we
Right.
could run into the thing of like, the depression kinda usually kicks in when it's like, even though, yeah, I mean, not a lot of your listeners probably have heard of my name, or they'll go and look me up and go, "Wow, you've done a lot of cool things." But
Mhm.
I did have that feeling of like, I'm in the limelight. I'm always being, people in my hometown know who I am. So if I did something I wasn't supposed to, they'd end up finding out. And, relationships, I see my friends out dating and stuff like that. And here I
Mhm.
am, like, so focused on my career where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. Like, oh,
Right.
these girls like me. That's really sweet of them. But
Yeah.
when do I have time to, sit down and have a candlelit, dinner with them? I
Right.
don't. I got work to
Exactly.
do. So
Mhm.
it did, mess with me a lot too, and even still to this day, I mean, I do a lot of short film projects. I did some yesterday. I was actually appearing on TMZ. They called me up and said, "Hey, Vinny, let's have you back on the show." I've done 8 episodes with them. I've acted in a couple Super Bowl commercials and
Mhm.
did some Discovery Channel crime reenactment shows back in the day. And
Yeah.
it's you get to that point where you're like, you realize this is more of a hobby, not really a career,
Mhm.
and so you got to find that balance. But and yeah, so I've done a lot, and, you're probably like, "Wow, you're still so young though," and I think that's what makes it hard too, is you have a lot of people that are older than you
Mhm.
saying, "Well, when I was your age, I was doing this," and it's like, we're in a totally different generation now, and that's what's hard.
Yeah. How old are you?
So I am 33.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how, like, I know you said you would just, like, when you first came in, you thought, "Oh, okay, I watch all these Disney channels. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make sure that I act." So how did you find who you are, or are you still searching for who you are?
Yeah, that's always a constant, uphill battle where you're going, "Okay, I'm Vinny who interviews these famous bands," or, "Oh, I'm Vinny, I'm that funny guy from this show or this little film." But then
Mhm.
you're like, "Well, no, that's, like, what I enjoy doing, that's my career, but, like, who am I on the inside? Am I a good guy?" People see me and go, "Oh, you seem like a nice guy," but then you're like, "Am I really a nice guy, or are they just
Yeah.
saying that?" And
Uh-huh.
that's always hard, especially being an actor, because if you're playing a certain character, people see you as that, so for an
Mhm.
example, like Johnny Depp, you see him in Pirates of the Caribbean, and you're like, "Man, he's, like, intimidating and
Right.
scary," but then it's like, he's just like all of us and, has a
Mhm.
soft side, and so but yeah, trying to find your identity, find yourself, and that's always an ongoing process, but, of course, as we get older and mature, we realize, we don't really have to look far, we don't have to, like, overthink it, right? We don't have to be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, who really are we today?" And then it's like,
Right.
we know, So
Mhm. Hopefully. There's a lot of us that don't.
no, and you know what? That's okay too, because
Yeah.
it takes time. I think the problem with today's society is we're so glued to a timetable where we're like, "Oh, by this time, you
Mhm.
should have that career. By this time, you should have your own place. By this time, you should be married and have kids." And it's like there's so much pressure on that where you wonder why a lot of people have, lack of self-confidence, lack of
Mhm.
self-esteem, or it just eats you up inside. So you just got to
Mhm.
realize, hey, live the life that you want. At the end of the day, it's yours.
Yeah, but that's what I speak about sometimes, are these imaginary deadlines and timelines that we put on our own lives is kind of what ends up causing so much resistance. It kind of holds us back from moving forward.
Right.
But my biggest question is, I can't believe you were doing all this at 13. So I'm just kind of trying to think of being in a 13-year-old's mind, and you're conducting interviews. Did you have much of a childhood?
Um, yeah, I did. I mean, it was just different. I mean, I think, like I said, being homeschooled,
Hmm.
that really played a part on me because academically, I was a great student. It's like I
Hmm.
would wake up, like everybody else, 6, 7 in the morning. I'd start my schoolwork around 8. I'd be done by 2, 3 o'clock, and then I'd have the rest of the afternoon. Like I said, my friends were in other, schools in the district, and they were, playing sports or in, whatever activities they were into. So for me, I had to find my thing, and my thing was taking a video camera and going out and documenting events that were happening in my hometown, or going and interviewing people, or writing scripts. And when you're that young, you're pretty good at, like, having an imagination where you're like, "Oh yeah, hey, here's my stuffed animals and let me make a video out of this."
Yeah.
But I think I seen a lot of, behind the scenes of, like, E! True Hollywood Stories, and that, like, there was a fascination there with other, celebrity interviews going, "Well, if they can do it, I can do it too." And
Right.
just because I don't live near Los Angeles doesn't mean I can make my own path. And so I think when you're young, I don't think you're afraid of hearing no. Of course, you're
Right.
afraid of hearing no from your peers, and, of course, I got teased, I'm not gonna deny that, where when I did go to a public school from ninth grade through 12th grade, people knew my show, even some of the teachers, they would, like, flip on my show, like, they would record it on a VHS tape, bring it in, and put it in because they
Yeah.
knew I was coming in on purpose just to mess with me, and
Hmm.
then other kids were like, "Oh, it's so lame, oh, you're interviewing dumb bands," or whatever, and,
Yeah.
like, that didn't get like, I feel like I had that period of my life where people were, like, making fun of me, and it was, like, hitting me hard after high school because
Hmm.
I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm, like, 18, 19 years old. I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years of my life, doing something I enjoy with my life to get to make it a career. And
Yeah.
then that's when it like hit harder, because all your friends were out like going to a 4-year college, university, and here I am like still on TV, once a week
Mhm.
on local television. And that was tough. So but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things I did miss out on, going to school football games because I was so work driven, where I said, yeah, I could go hang out with a bunch of high school kids, or I could go hang out with a bunch of dudes that are tattooed and have mohawks or long, crazy, wild hair and be
Yeah.
interviewing these rock bands that we can listen to on the radio. So, I mean, I don't know, pick your poison, right?
Yeah. So what was it like? So you went to public school in high school during your high school years. But was that like a social shock, or what was that like when you finally arrived there?
Yeah, no, it was just, I think my maturity level was
Mhm.
being around mostly, like, my parents and, other
Right.
adults,
That's what
and then going into school, and then these kids are, like, sitting there at the lunch table talking about, like, Pokemon, and I'm like, "Toad, you guys are watching anime?" Like,
right.
I'm watching, VH1,
Uh-huh.
reality shows at the time, like, I'm like, "Okay, this is weird," and, it was funny because I grew up in the era of, like, AOL Instant Messenger,
Yeah.
and after I would interview a band, a lot of times they'd give me their personal, like, AOL Instant Messenger screen name, so I'm just sitting there, like, having conversations like, "Hey, I'm struggling in school," or whatever, or, "Hey, bro, I know you were in a music video on MTV, and I saw your video last night. Congratulations. By the way, hey, I like this girl. Can you give me some dating advice?" And I'm just,
Yeah.
like, making, like, people were like, "Well, who were your best friends, Vinny, growing up?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, this guy, he was in this band. Oh, this guy, he plays drums for that band. Oh, this guy's the singer of this band." And they're like, "Those are your friends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're my friends." Like,
Yeah.
and it was just such a weird, period, and maybe they weren't the best type of friends, but it's like,
Mhm.
I knew I could rely on them, right? So, and
Right.
that's what was
Yeah.
important versus another you're 15 and you have another 15-year-old friend who's not really gonna be reliable, but hey, if you have a 25-year-old dude that's touring around the country and messaging you at 2 AM, girl advice, hey, why not?
Yeah, yeah, but that's good though. So you at least you were able to receive some type of wisdom,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
that's always good. Especially I think, especially like older people, like my elders, I feel that they give the best advice. They have their minds are just absolutely phenomenal and I love hearing from them. So that makes sense to me. But as far as your battle or your journey, should I say, with depression, is that something that you still is it something that's always something that you're going to kind of ping pong back and forth, where some days you're out of it, some months you're out of it, but then it kind of creeps back up on you, or how is that journey for you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to describe it. It just creeps up on you, I think it's interesting because when we think of general depression, my biggest thing that it was hard for me is, yeah, you're a teenager and you're like, well, I'll grow out of it when I'm maybe, 17. I won't
Mhm.
have those issues that I had when I was, 14, 15, or whatever. Then you're like, okay, 21. You're like, I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. And then
Mhm.
you have that chapter in your life and you're going, man, why did I like dig back in the hole? I told myself I wasn't going to feel that way. I wasn't going to feel so alone. I was gonna reach out to my friends when I felt that low, and I didn't, and I stuck to myself, or I went backwards. Um, and then, you get into your 30s and you're going, wow, why am I still feeling this way? Why do I feel like a little teenage brat that's whining about something that didn't go my way, or something that, just didn't happen at all? And it kind of hits me, like, again, before we were doing this interview, I was explaining, like, it tends to work when you're not busy. And the
Mhm.
thing with being in the industry, whether you're an actor, a filmmaker, or some kind of artist, is that we don't have that typical like 9 to 5 job where we know, oh, yeah, for the next 3, 4 years, we're going to have this job. We got that security.
Mhm.
It can go from you're working hard, like you have a busy week where you do, you know, you do like 20 projects within a week span. And
Mhm.
then next week, it's like nothing. And then
Right.
next week goes by, and then now months go by, and you're going, "Well, I haven't acted in a film in how many months? I haven't gone out and filmed with my camera in a couple of weeks. I haven't made a YouTube video in like 3, 4 months." And then
Right.
you take a look back at yourself and go, "Man, it's amazing how that could impact us when
Mhm.
we do something we love so much and we put all of our passion and our heart into it, and then we don't do it for weeks and months. It's kinda like you feel part of you is missing something,
Right.
and
Right.
then you're kinda like, "Oh, man, oh, I haven't worked since March. Oh, this is a bummer. Like, then you start getting those negative thoughts in your head where you're like, "Well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should just, like, throw my whole career away and go work at Chick-fil-A or Walmart,"
Yeah.
or and then you have other people that tell you, "Dude, what are you doing filling out an application for McDonald's? You're not gonna be
Right.
flipping burgers, you're not gonna be happy doing that," and it's like,
Right.
well, gotta do what I gotta do, but on the
Right.
other hand, and I like you were saying, seeking, good guidance from elders, yeah, that's nice advice, but when you're being told, like, you're thinking you're doing the right thing by applying for just any job, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you were on national television, you were in, like, these commercials, you've done this, you were working with these
Right.
mainstream artists, don't go backwards, keep going forward."
Right.
And that
Absolutely.
that that can mess with you too, because 'cause you're just going, well, like, I'm at this period of my life, like, I did not think I was gonna do my TV show for as
Mhm.
many years as I did. I thought you often hear, like, younger people that are like, "Oh, my kid Johnny, I signed him up for piano lessons," and 2 weeks later, he got bored and just gave it
Right.
up. But then
Yeah.
it's like, "Wait a minute, I've been doing this for 20 years now, making
Mhm.
films, acting, going to auditions, doing TV commercials, like, I better stick with it."
Yeah.
But there are those periods where you're just like, you're just not feeling it, and that's
Yeah.
okay too, and I think the biggest thing is you just gotta be able to take breaks too, because breaks
Mhm.
are important, because if you hustle and hustle and you put all your energy into it, that's where we get burnt out, and you can
Yes.
get burnt out very easily. So I think it's all about pacing, it's just like you see those people running marathons and they're not going, full sprint the first, 10 seconds. It's like they're slow and then like get the middle and then they go really fast and then they slow down, but they pass the cross line, so
Right. I didn't even think of it that way. It's all about taste. I like that. I like that a lot. That makes a lot
right.
of sense.
So whatever your career field is, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or, in law enforcement or you are an artist, maybe you're a musician,
Mhm.
it's like, so say you're a singer-songwriter, you don't wanna go and, like, write 24 songs in, like, one
Yeah.
sitting and then be like, "Oh, this is my best hits collection," and you start
Right.
uploading your songs on, social media and YouTube, and then you do a music video for it, and then it's like, okay, now what are you gonna do? Because you just rushed and put everything together.
Yeah.
And, that's for me as a filmmaker, I'll write a short film, I'll go out and I'll shoot it, in a weekend. I love doing like little short, fast turnaround projects.
Mhm.
But then it's like, I'm not gonna write 10 scripts in, a 6-month period and then be like, okay, now what am I gonna do? So it's
Right.
just take one thing at a time, and it's all important.
So when you write these short films, like what's your average time? Like your length in between?
Um, it depends. I mean, everyone is different. I mean, everything is different with the scripts. Sometimes I'll have like similar themes or similar, you know, ideas where I'm like, oh, this will be great. I get a lot of motivation from like film festivals. Like if they're like, we have a horror film festival coming in up in October, then I'm like, okay, let me start writing something for that. And even though that's not until like, September, October, it gives me, a month leadway to, put all my process down and put everything together.
Mhm.
Um, but, and then sometimes I could be very bored and have nothing to do, and I can spit out 3 or 4 of them in a month and then go, okay. And then I have the problem of going, well, which one do I want to film next? And it's like, trying to pick your favorite kid, going, oh, do I want this one or that one?
Yeah.
That actually just happened to me this past summer. I had like 3 short films, and they're all equally like they're all unique, and very different from each other. And I called up my friend and I said, "Okay, hey, guess what? This summer, my goal is we're gonna make 3 of these films." And then she's like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, "I know, but we're gonna do it anyway." And then I was like, "Okay, let's just work on the one and then we'll see what happens." But
Yeah.
sometimes you do that, you get excited about your own projects.
And then you just what kind of bite off more than you can chew.
Right. And then you're like, "No wonder why I'm stressed and burnt out and overwhelmed and I didn't get anything done." So
Yeah. And what type of films do you create?
I have to laugh 'cause, when I get asked this, they're like, "Oh, do you do this type of" and I'm like, "No, I don't do those movies." So I make a lot of, like, just comedy films, and the reason
Mhm.
is because, again, we're in this, dark world as they refer it to is, I mean, I love going to movies, and don't get me wrong, I'll go see a horror film and be like, "Oh, that was cool." But, things on the news that happen every day, and it's like, I want like, my goal as a filmmaker when I start making, feature films and bigger production films is I want to have someone like yourself where you're like, "Hey, what'd you do last night, Robin?" "Oh, I went to go see a Vinnie Langdon movie, and it was hilarious, it was funny, it made me forget about my horrible day I had," and that's what I wanna be known for. I've attempted to make, like, dramatic and dark films, and
Mhm.
somehow it just doesn't come across. I the first, like, feature film I made, came out in 2009, it was called Mystery Under Misery. Ended up
Mhm.
shooting the film in 3 months, rented out the local movie theater, played it in the local movie theater, had, everyone, the town, the mayor, and all these VIPs come, and the newspaper writes a review in the paper, which was fine, but they said, "This movie was hysterically well produced by Vinnie Langdon," and I'm like, you realize that the character in the movie at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, died, like, that how was
Mhm.
that funny? But I guess just, putting my personality into the film, they thought
Mhm.
it was a comedy, but so I take that as a compliment, so I stick to making comedy films now, but I
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like, "Okay, everything's a joke to you. Great, thanks." But
Wow.
but
Okay.
but yeah, so I just make these, like, quirky little short films and people can laugh and, hey, there's a market for that, so why not?
Absolutely. And what are the names of some of those films, or at least your favorite ones?
Yeah, they can go on YouTube and type in my name, Vinnie Langdon. The first film I ever did was called Permission, came out in 2006, and, basically, I had the concept for that film was like I'm an old school guy, so I'm like, I'm gonna ask the parents out, for permission to date their daughter. But
Mhm.
the story in the film revolves around me overthinking of like, wait a minute, what are her parents gonna be like? So the whole film is like a dream sequence where I'm, sitting there before I meet them and I'm like, dude, what if her parents are hippies? And then this
Mhm.
whole scene plays out where her parents are hippies, and then it's like, well, what if they're in the military and they're like super strict? And then what if her parents, um, have a learning disability or something like that? So it was like all these different like scenarios of like
What?
you're dreaming. You're like, wait, what? Just the things that guys think about when they,
Yeah.
go out on a date, But, so there's Permission. There's a similar film that I did, like, 10 years later called Speed Dating, where it was, "Hey, your ideal girlfriend, what would that look like?" And you have the girl that's, like, super into fitness, and you're like, yeah, that's great that you work out, but I can't compete with you." And then there's
Mhm.
the girl that's, like, the foodie, the Instagram, the Snapchat social media influencer, and then there's the typical cougar and all this. So it's just, comedic stuff, different characters. But yeah, I mean, I've done, like, over 35 short films. There's actually a playlist on YouTube, people can check it out, and, yeah, hope you guys enjoy it.
Absolutely. Hopefully, it'll take us kind of down a path of what goes on in your mind. Apparently, type of things come across your mind
Well,
because
and
that one kind of threw me off. That one was like way out in left field.
no, yeah, and you just and I'm at that stage where I'm working on it as a filmmaker is to people are like, "Well, you should do, like, true stories and not just, like, made up funny fantasy stuff," and so, like, the next my goal for the next going into 2024 is to make films that are a little bit not as comedic, but more
Mhm,
personal, related, stories that I went through and just
mhm,
using that as like therapy too, to be able to be like, yeah, my life, people might see, oh, you were on TMZ yesterday, or you were hanging out with these celebrities at a party. That must be so fun. But then you see like I said, the vulnerable side and, the struggles I've gone through with relationships or friendships or just different chapters in life of like so this weekend I'm shooting a film called Ghosted, and the
mhm.
inspiration behind that was, just dealing with grief and loss and having to get over that hurdle. And I know a
Right.
lot of people say, "Oh, just get over it." And it's like, you can't tell people that, like, that's so
Mhm.
disrespectful. You have to it's like we were talking about, it's a pace you have to go through. So that film will be coming out in a couple of weeks, and it's just, just growing and, just, putting yourself out there. But for me, like, growing up, like, funerals terrified me. Like, anytime
Mhm.
someone passed away in our family, it was like, "Mom, Dad, do I really have to go to that funeral?" Like, it's
Yeah.
scary, right? Everyone's crying, the food might be good, but that's about it. But see? Yeah, so for me to channel this film and get it out there and get it out, like, it's like a part of me putting myself into this movie where it's like the character in the film is, terrified of, funerals, and he's losing his wife, and just to deal with that, um, so it's gonna be a powerful one, and I'm excited because I'm just, excited for the reaction because people are gonna be like, "Wow, Vinny, you made this movie?" And then those who personally know me will be like, "Oh, this is something you kinda were dealing with for a while inside of your head," and now to be able to release that into the medium of,
Mhm.
a film, it's gonna be interesting, definitely.
And I think you should, because I feel like when you said how they were laughing at a movie that you didn't really actually mean to
Mhm.
be funny, I think that kind of put a roadblock in where you were trying to go. And I think if you pick that back up, that it'll be extremely prosperous. You know what I mean? Because it's what you want to do. That's where your heart is, right?
Right, right, absolutely, yeah.
So I think you should. I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it because now I'm actually about to go and do some research.
Nice, awesome, love it, yeah, that is cool.
So, out of all the things that you can think of, what is like the one piece of advice or just any type of advice that you would want to give to all the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a filmmaker and actor, and a lot of people say, "Well, how do you get into the industry?" They always hear, different stories of, their idols, their actors. Some of them, "Oh, I gotta move to LA." No, no, you
Mhm.
don't. You could do it in your backyard. You have social media now, and just have fun because this is a career where even as a filmmaker, there's too many people that, like, take it too seriously, and they worry about they have to have lots of money, they have to have the best equipment, they have to, oh, you gotta raise money, and it's like there's so many different factors and aspects, and yes, that is true in one aspect, but when you're just getting started, just try it to see if you like it, because a lot of times, like I was joking earlier about, little Johnny kid, jumping in piano classes, and 2 weeks later, he goes, "This ain't for me." Um,
Right.
that happens a lot. I had a lot of friends that were like, "Oh, I wanna be an actor. Oh, I could do that. It looks easy." And then I invite them because I'm that nice person where I'm like, "Oh, Robin, you like acting? Well, here, where you never did it before, show up on a set. I'll give you some lines." And then you're like, "Wait a minute, we have to sit here for 6 hours, and wait, you're moving the camera and you're moving the lights, and this is like an all-day process? Like, I thought you just needed me for 5 minutes." It's like, "No, this is the world of film and television," and then you have to come back tomorrow in a different outfit, and you have to shoot another scene and do it all over again until we're
Yeah.
done, and people just don't have the patience for that, or they do one acting gig, or they'll work on a project, and then they'll be like, okay, where's my SAG card? And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, it works for
Yeah.
some people in Hollywood and you see, oh, they showed up and auditioned and they got, the lead part in the Little Mermaid movie or something, right? But it's
Mhm.
like, no, it takes time. It's not gonna happen overnight. You're not gonna have the
Yeah.
500,000 followers tomorrow. Um, so be patient, have fun, try it, see if you like it, and just, follow your heart. And if you do enjoy it, who cares what other people think? And just do you, at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
I like that. I love your personality. I really do. You have a great personality.
Right, right. Thanks.
So, and how can they get in contact with you? What's your YouTube channel again? The name of it?
Yeah, so the best is you could look up The Vinnie Langdon Show, and you'll see some snippets from my TV show. You'll see some of my short films, and then sometimes there's just videos of me just hanging out with my German shepherds doing absolutely nothing. So that's a variety. So you never know. But yeah, well, this was fun, and I appreciate you, and I think you're doing a great job too, talking to a variety of people, and just, we're all humans. It's one planet. We should all get along, and I think strive to help each other. I think we get so busy, caught up with our own lives, where we forget to pause and help other people. So hopefully this.
Absolutely.
Hopefully this podcast was inspirational to some people or whatever,
Absolutely. I
and
know it is, and it's going to help someone.
yeah, and just, do what you wanna do. Enjoy life. Have fun.
Thank you so much, Vinny. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome.
All right, that is it. This is It's All About Healing podcast again with Robin Black, and today we had Vinny Langdon. Everyone, stay blessed and have a wonderful night.